Hi there, I'm Willie Wormhead and I'm a knit designer specializing in knitted techniques, construction and knitted hats. In today's video, I'm actually going to talk to you a little bit more about short rows, and I'm going to kind of follow on from my last tutorial that I shared was how to repair a German short row. There was a comment left on the video, which has led me to kind of believe that I wasn't being clear and that person was a little bit confused about what I was trying to explain in terms of how you rebuild a German short row. So I want to kind of like go on from that today and explain it further. So this might get a little bit technical. So if you're not familiar with German short rows, I apologize in advance if some of this kind of like doesn't make sense or just kind of like leaves you sitting there wondering what on earth's going on. I do have some videos planned that are going to explain German short rows from the basics up. But while that video is out and while there might be other people that are confused or uncertain about what I've explained in this particular technique, I'd like to address that now. So to avoid any concern going forward. So what I'm going to do is I've got 3 swatches prepared. I am going to work on those 3 swatches. I'm going to put a German short row in each one. One of them is going to be my reference point that is a German short row static. One of them is going to be a German short row that I will slowly undo to show you how I kind of reverse the process. And one of them is going to be the German short row that I repair. Now in the video that I shared last time, in my last video, which I'm going to try and connect up in case you've lost track of where things are, I showed 2 methods of repairing a German short row. One was the quick method, which is not perfect, but it does the job. And the other one is a reverse engineering of a German short row, which is the better method and it gives you the results you want. And I'm going to focus on the latter method of those 2. All right, so I'm now going to switch the overheads and I'm going to bring in these swatches and I'm going to talk you through and show you the German short rows while I'm working them. So hopefully that will clear up any confusion and so help you understand what's going on with these as you create them. Okay, here are the 3 swatches that I will be using today to demo on. I've deliberately chosen colours that I'm hoping will show up better on camera, and I have nice contrasting yarns, things like these, that will help to show the stitches better. When demoing short rows, it actually really helps to have a second colour because you see more clearly, especially with German short rows, what's happening with the stitch that becomes a double leg stitch and the stitch that gets disappeared. So I'm going to now remove 2 of these swatches out and I'm going to work with this first one, which is in purple. Well, it's a kind of like pinky purple. And I'm going to use this contrasting green against it. And I am going to knit a few stitches and then I'm going to work a German short row because it is easier to see how the German short rows are behaving and see the different components of it when it's worked in a contrasting yarn. Because a German short row is made up of 2 parts. It's made up of a double-legged stitch and a disappeared stitch. So I'm going to put German short row on this next stitch here. Now, German short row is made up of a knit stitch. So what I would normally do is I'd recommend that you slip that purlwise, and to make a nice, because you want nice tight German short rows to maintain the tension, I would normally recommend putting the needle tip in and pulling this stitch as tight as possible as you go around. This stitch here that was knit from this row below is the one that becomes the double leg stitch. The one that we've just knit, this stitch here, is the one that gets disappeared. So if you see me referring to a disappeared stitch, that's the one, and it becomes a loop later on. But because I want to use this as a reference point, I'm going to not put it too tight because we want to be able to look at the anatomy of the GSR as we work. So I'm going to just knit it slightly across. Whoop, got another needle there in the way. Now, unlike rack and turn, there is a right side and a wrong side to German short rows. So we've just worked the German short row as we were knitting on the right side. And we worked the double leg stitch on the wrong side. And so this is how it looks on the right side. Normally this would be tighter. So this little lump here would be lower down here. This, let's get this right, is the double leg stitch. And we can see it's the double leg stitch. There we go. because it connects with the loop of the stitch that gets disappeared. Okay, so the stitch that you knit to create the GSR gets disappeared. The stitch that you knitted from the row below becomes the double leg stitch. So that's technically what's going on. And so normally this would be pulled tighter. So this little lump here would kind of sit lower at this point. But for now, I've wanted to leave it here so you can see where the double leg stitch is anchored at the back, and the disappeared loop sits at the front. So I'm now going to bring in another swatch, and I'm going to knit another one, and then I'm going to show you how we undo the German short row once we've worked it. Okay, we're now on to swatch 2. I've got another contrasting yarn. I'm going to knit a bunch of stitches, maybe 5, 6 maybe. And then I'm going to work a German short row, exactly the same as I did before, but I'm going to leave it a little bit loose so that I can undo it and show you how it's constructed. So I'm going to put the German short row on this stitch here. So we knit it. Whether you work your German short row by pulling before or after you turn is entirely up to you. That's a preference. I do it after I turn because I get neater results. So, and as I say, there will be a more in-depth video tutorial about German short rows. So if you're not following at this point, that's fine. This is quite technical talk about German short rows. So I'm going to knit this, but again, I'm not making it too tight because we want to see the anatomy of the German short row. And we're going to knit across. I've just introduced another colour, that's why that stitch is saggy. So what I'm going to do, we can see here, I'm going to bring that other swatch in that we did before. They look pretty much the same. That's what a German short row from this side of the work would look like, except this point, bring it down, this little point here would normally be lower here, because what happens when you've got a German short row is that you have 2 loops that interconnect like this. That's what happens when the stitches are knit and then you disappear the stitch. They form 2 links or 2 loops of stitches that kind of are linked and connected. All right. So this is the same here that we've got. Now I'm going to slip these first few stitches off the needle, or sorry, onto this needle, so that we can get to that German short row. Sorry, let's bring that back into the little camera there. And that we can then look at how this is deconstructed. So this red here, anchored at the back, that's our double leg stitch. This green at the front, you see that it's anchored because it's anchored into that row below, because that's worked from the short row. That's the loop that was created when we knitted the stitch and disappeared it. And you can see that it then goes through the back of the stitch round to the back. So that's a loop. That's the double leg stitch. Now, to undo this step by step, we look at the first loop that needs to be undone, which is actually this front loop of here. So we take that up, and then we see that we've actually got this stitch, which is the one that's the double leg stitch, is suspended over the loop that's created from this row below here. If we take that stitch off, or we unsuspend it, we can see the loop which is twisted. If you remember from the video that I showed before, that the better way of doing this to rebuild a German short row is to twist this stitch, or this loop, sorry, 1 half stitch back. Normally when you undo it, it ends up looking like that. Okay, the best way to repair it is to leave it like that. And that is actually how it came undone. All right. Okay, so this is the 3rd swatch. I've already knitted a few stitches on this. I'm going to work the German short row on this stitch, which means I'm going to knit it. And I'm going to turn. Please focus. There we go. And this I'm going to slip over and turn into the double leg stitch. And knit back towards the end of the row. Now, this is going to be the one that I'm going to drop and repair or rebuild as per my last tutorial. So let's bring that needle over there. I'm just going to slip them across for speed because you don't need to see me knitting loads of stitches. Now, we saw in the red swatch how to deconstruct and take apart a German short row slowly. I'm just going to drop it off, right? And it looks like that stitch is inside that one. But it kind of is and it kind of isn't. It's how we rebuild it. And don't forget, there's more than one way to do this, but this is technically a correct rebuild. So I'm going to take that off there. And that's our loop. Now, if you remember from the red swatch, I said that when this drops off the needle, it often looks like this. What we need to do is to twist it towards the back. And then we resuspend this stitch, because this is the one that gets dropped. This is the double leg stitch. Resuspend it over the loop, which is from the disappeared stitch. And then we put our needle into the front end of the disappeared stitch at the point where it joins the row below, and we put it back on. And there it is. The double leg stitch is still there. The disappeared stitch is still there. So I'm going to bring that swatch back in from the one that we deconstructed. I have to excuse all the tangled yarns. And there it is. Let's undo this one again. Drop it off. It looks like this stitch is inside the loop, but that's because of the way that it gets knitted and reconstructed. We can manipulate the double leg stitch, or can manipulate, sorry, the disappeared stitch to make sure that the double leg stitch is in the right place. There's always more than one way of doing it, and this is the way that I show how to do it. So at this point, we have two sets of stitches that actually look identical. This is the one where we took apart the German short row. This is the one where we dropped it. See the way that's been turned at the back to give it a twist? They're exactly the same there. To rebuild this one, we're going to drop it off and suspend it over the loop that we created, or that was created from the disappeared stitch. We put our needle into the front of it. From either way, front or back, we need to grab that loop and lift it back onto the needle, and make sure you get all the threads of that. And there you go, it gets rebuilt. Looks exactly the same. There is the one, our sample point, our reference point. The disappeared stitch is anchored to the bottom of this row, and it goes through the back, and there's the double leg stitch there. This is the same. This is here. This one goes through the back, and there's our double leg stitch. It looks looser because it's been dropped. All drop stitches kind of have an issue with tension because they get dropped, and we have to manipulate the stitches to rebuild something. But that doesn't mean that it's wrong. It just will even out later. So long as you understand how the disappeared stitch connects with its double leg stitch. And again, we bring this one in because that's the deconstructed one. Too many swatches here, haven't I? That's it deconstructed manually. That's the dropped one that was rebuilt. And that's the original. They're all exactly the same. There isn't any difference about where the disappeared stitch or the disappeared loop is anchored. The fact that we manipulate the disappeared loop to recreate the German short row doesn't mean we're turning the disappeared loop into the double leg stitch. It just means that we're working the two loops together, and we're actually taking the quicker route. Even though there's a quicker route that's not as neat, this is actually the simplest route to rebuilding your German short row. I hope that's helped explain a little bit about how your German short row is constructed. what the double leg stitch is, what the disappeared stitch loop is, how they work together, how when they are taken apart manually and how when they're dropped, they are similar, and the way that you reconstruct them does actually recreate a German short row completely and gives you some more technical understanding about German short rows. There are other tutorials coming, so I will try and get working on those as soon as possible. In the meantime, thank you for your time. Do the like, subscribe thing. Thank you very much, and see you next time.